Hey everybody, and welcome to the weekly scopes from the 28th of September until the 4th of October. Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's weekly scopes. If you've heard this before, you can skip, but this is just the intro on how I formulate these astrology weekly readings. I use astrology and my intuition to give you advice how you can practically use the knowledge of the stars and the planets and apply them to your life. So my weekly scopes are all based on GMT time and on Vedic Constellational Astrology. So now I'm just going to explain what Vedic Constellational Astrology is and how it differs from Western astrology. So the precession of the equinox is sort of like something that happens in astronomy and astrology, where the Earth's axis undergoes a slow circular motion over 26,000 years, and basically this means that this motion causes a shift in the position of the equinoxes, and also the calculation Vedic and Western astrologies use. So around 2,000 years ago, the tropical and sidereal Vedic astrology signs of astrology were aligned in the same position. So if the sun was in Scorpio in Vedic astrology, it was also in the constellation of Scorpio in Western astrology. But because of the precession of the equinoxes, this has caused a gradual westward sort of like drift of the tropical Western signs. So basically these signs and the Western signs shift 1 degree with every 72 years. So as a result of this ongoing shift, when Western astrology says the sun is in the constellation of Pisces, it's typically in the constellation of Aquarius. Still, this is because the degree, orb and the date for Western and Vedic astrology are 24 degrees, 24 days apart. So in Western astrology, the sun enters the constellation of Pisces around the 19th of February each year, but actually the sun doesn't arrive into the constellation of Pisces until the 13th to the 15th of March each year, and Vedic astrology takes this into account because it's based on the fixed star positions, and Vedic astrologers use sidereal calculations. So as a result, Vedic astrology takes into account the actual positions of the constellations in the sky at any given time, and also considers the precession of the equinox, adjusting for the shift in the position of the equinoxes over time. But in terms of Western astrology follows the tropical zodiac, which is based on the seasons rather than fixed star positions. Western astrologers also do not directly account for the precession of the equinox in their calculations as well, so this results in slightly different calculations and interpretations that are given whether we're using Western astrology or Vedic astrology. So yeah, as I said, Western astrology uses specific dates, so every year, regardless of where the sun actually is at the sky, the sun moves into Pisces around the 19th of February. So yeah, this discrepancy, this misalignment between the tropical zodiac and the actual positions of the constellations has led to a discrepancy between Vedic astrology and Western astrology. So I consider the actual where the sun and the moon are and where Mars and Venus are at any given time, and this is how I formulate these sort of like weekly scopes. So yeah, thanks for listening to this, and let's dive into this week's weekly scope. Okay, so now I'm just going to explain what parallels and contra-parallels are in astrology, because I use them in my chart interpretation. So declination in astrology is the measure of how far a celestial body is, such as the sun, whether it's either north or south of the celestial equator. And the celestial equator is an imaginary line in the sky above the Earth's equator, which us astrologers use in our interpretation. So parallels happen when two planets are on the same declination. Either both planets are on the north side side, or either both planets are on the south side, and this alignment increases the influence of the involved planets. So it's similar to a conjunction aspect, as it amplifies their energy, making the effects of the planets more pronounced. Contra-parallels, on the other hand, happen when two planets are on the same declination, but one is in the north and one is in the south. So this alignment creates tension, which is similar to an opposition aspect, and it can lead to conflict, challenges and inner struggles between the energies of the planets involved. So contra-parallels highlight areas of friction or contrast in our lives, urging us to find balance between their opposing forces at play. When transiting parallels and contra-parallels happen, they can sort of like trigger significant events, shifting consciousness and periods of intense growth and transformation. So I look at these aspects closely during chart analysis to understand how planetary energies interact and influence each other during a specific time frame, to pinpoint key periods for personal development, relationship dynamics or career shifts, and other shifts like karmic shifts and stuff like that. Because I just find using contra-parallels and parallels gives me more depth in interpretation, so I use them. So contra-parallels and parallels in astrology serve as markers for potential challenges or breakthroughs, guiding us towards more self-awareness, love, acceptance, understanding, forgiveness for ourselves and others, and shifts in consciousness and growth. So overall, just a shift in our mindset if we allow for it. So parallels and contra-parallels just kind of like provide valuable insights into the complexities and nuances of the astrological interactions between planetary movements. So yeah, that's the end of what contra-parallels and parallels are. So we have a few aspects influencing us this week. We've got Mercury making a contra-parallel to Venus, and Mercury's in Virgo and Venus is in Leo. We've got the Sun making a parallel to Saturn, and that's exact at 12:23 a.m. on the 1st of October. And Mercury's contra-parallel to Venus is exact at 6:13 a.m. on the 30th of September, leaves us on the 1st of October and enters on the 28th of September. The Sun's parallel to Saturn leaves us on the 6th of October and entered on the 1st of October. Mercury also makes a contra-parallel to Chiron, and this enters on the 1st of October, is exact at 1:38 on the 4th of October and leaves us on the 7th of October. And the Sun makes a parallel to the Moon's North Node, and this aspect is exact at 6:30 p.m. and leaves us on the 10th of October. Okay? So this week is a mix of aspects that will influence our communication, our relationships, our sense of responsibility and accountability, and the way that we heal. Mercury's contra-parallel to Venus. We sort of like experience, a contrast between our logical analysis and emotional connection. Mercury's all about our thinking and communication, and Venus rules our values and relationships. So it brings a delicate balance, this aspect between our head and heart this week. The Sun's parallel to Saturn is when the Sun, our core identity, influences structure and discipline represented by Saturn, right? And this supports us, and it's calling us to align our authentic self with our responsibilities. So this brings a serious sort of like focus energy into this week that demands for us to like really look at our commitments and think about whether we're committing to the right things in our life. Mercury's contra-parallel to Chiron, Chiron being the wounded healer, and with this aspect our thoughts and our words can either heal us and others this week or wound us, add to the trauma, right? So it allows us to have repair conversations in our relationship, but we can also have damaging actions and words that can destroy our relationship. So ultimately, the best use of this energy is to deal with any communication related wounds you have. Maybe you feel you're not a good public speaker or any type of speaker. You don't trust the way you write or talk, or there's damage caused by words in your relationship. This energy really helps us repair things if we use it in the right way. The sun's parallel to the moon's north node is, the north node represents our karmic path forward, making progress in our lives. So it allows us to think about what steps we need to move forward in our life, and it helps us to see our path more clearly as well. So that's the summary version of this week. So as always, if you want the week in a summary version, that's it. But now I'm going to go in depth and talk more about how these aspects affects us on the karmic, the spiritual levels, esoteric, how it affects our career, our business and all that good stuff. So Mercury's contra-parallel to Venus brings dynamic tension between our communication and love this week, highlighting, the need to balance our rational thought this week with our emotional expression. So, it increases our ability to articulate, to speak our feelings clearly and our desires. It gives us opportunities for meaningful romantic conversations. It allows for creative problem solving in relationships and diplomatic communication that, heals and bridges differences and improves our ability to express appreciation and affection this week. But negatively, it can bring miscommunication in our intimate and romantic hookup situations. We can overthink emotional matters this week, and this can cause problems and tension. Someone may do an action and we may read more into it, or we may not read enough into it. So rather than assume, just ask questions and sometimes accept someone's answer, but also trust your own gut feelings about it, which can be kind of hard as well. But just do as much as you can to ask the right questions, and ultimately you're the one that has to live your life right. So you have to be comfortable with the decisions that you make, regardless of what someone else may be saying. It can also bring conflict between our logic and our heart desires, and we can just have difficulty expressing our feelings clearly, and we can risk saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. So it's a great energy to have the important conversations we've been putting off, taking time to make sure we think before we speak this week, and don't let your overthinking stop you from expressing your feelings. Write down your thoughts first if need be, if you're worried about getting tongue-tied or anything else, and use this energy to create harmony through heartfelt communication. The sun makes a parallel to Saturn as well, so this brings together our personal will and disciplined routine and structure, and it just creates opportunities for serious commitment and long-term achievement. So it increases our focus and determination to reach our long-term goals. It increases our ability to take on responsibilities. It allows us to build foundations in our life, routines, and looking at our, work routine, our hygiene routine, how we look after our psychological, emotional and physical health and stuff, and, sort of like make changes or bring new routines to help so that we've got the right kind of, daily practices to, help us reach our long-term goals. It can improve our patience and perseverance. We can get recognition for hard work that we've done in the past. We can increase our dedication, but it can add to us feeling weighed down by responsibilities. There can be a potential for self-doubt or imposter syndrome. We can be, really serious or pessimistic in our outlook. We can have a fear of taking risks or making changes. We can feel restricted or limited in our options. So it can make us, to use this energy. It's really good for serious focus, making real progress on our biggest goals. We shouldn't be afraid of the hard work that Saturn wants us to do, because Saturn always rewards us if we put the effort in. It's ideal for us to create routine and structured plans, as I said, for our goals and stick to them. This is also an excellent time for writing authoritative letters, dealing with letters of authority or authority figures, and taking on leadership roles as well this week, or empowering yourself to sort of like take ownership and accountability for your life direction you write. And remember, it isn't about perfection, it's about consistency and steady progress, right? Mercury makes a contra-parallel to Chiron, and this sort of like highlights the healing power of honest communication this week, giving us the courage to speak about our vulnerabilities and wounds, spiritual, psychological and emotional traumas. It allows us to heal through honest conversations with ourselves and others. It allows us to gain knowledge and wisdom through sharing our experiences with those we can trust. It increases our ability to help others with our words this week, whether it be writing, voicing them, and it can give us really, really strong breakthrough insights about past patterns that we need to let go of so we can move forward. So this can be, past ways of relating to yourself and others, not taking control of your thoughts, because I've realised you can't get rid of all your negative thoughts, and sometimes we need negative things to happen so we can grow through them. This is not to invalidate your trauma or anything like that. It's about being real about life, right? So it can bring us insights into how and what we need to heal or continue to heal. We can be more compassionate in our communication, and this can transform our pain this week. But negatively, painful memories can happen when we're having conversations. We can have difficulty finding the right words for our deep emotions this week. We can have a fear of being vulnerable or misunderstood. We can have a tendency to replay hurtful words of experience, and we can open up old wounds through careless speech. So it's an incredibly powerful for therapeutic conversations and healing work. If you have been avoiding difficult conversations about past hurts, this energy supports having those difficult conversations and having more empathy and understanding as you do so. And journaling about your experiences and thoughts, or speaking with a trusted friend or counsellor, can really help you this week, because your words can have the power to heal both yourself and others. The sun's parallel to the moon's north node sort of like puts a spotlight on our soul's purpose and destiny path, bringing clarity about our life direction and future growth. It can give us a clearer vision of life purpose and direction. Opportunities can align with soul growth. It can increase confidence in following our path. We can have more of a recognition of our unique gifts and talents, and synchronicities can guide us forward, but we can have an overwhelming sense of destiny or pressure. A fear of not living up to our potential can really rock us this week, as we can have confusion about which opportunities to go after and which to let go of, and we can feel isolated this week as well. And we can also have a lot of resistance to the changes that we need to make also. So the best use of this energy is to pay close attention to the opportunities and people that show up around this time, and because whatever happens this time is likely to be connected to your soul's journey. Trust your instincts about what feels right for your future, even if it doesn't make logical sense. This is an excellent time for setting intentions about your life direction and taking concrete steps towards your biggest goals and dreams. So in terms of the weekly energy patterns of all these aspects, right, ultimately positively this week, aspects allow us to increase our communication and be more empathetic as well, and we can talk more, communicate more with care and precision and focus. It gives us the opportunity to mix practical considerations, the practicalities with emotional intelligence, it gives us a stronger ability to create organized structures and routines that honor our spiritual values. It can bring, clarity about our long-term path and purpose. It gives us chances to heal old wounds through thoughtful conversation. It increases our discipline and focus on important relationships. It gives us greater appreciation for relationships and social relationships, and it allows us to take more accountability with our commitments and responsibilities as well. But negatively, there can be a disconnection between our thoughts and feelings. We can be overly critical and overthink and analytical in our relationships and with our own actions. We can be too serious and pessimistic and emotionally cold. We can find it hard to confront painful truths, and sometimes what if the truth this week is someone wants to let you go, or you need to let someone go. So painful truths can require extra time for you to process and accept them. We can feel restricted and limited by our responsibilities, and communication misunderstandings can touch on our, get on our nerves, touch that raw nerves, So we just have to, give people grace and ourselves grace, respect other people's boundaries, but also give them grace when they, overstep our boundaries. But if someone keeps on overstepping, obviously that's when we have to enforce our boundaries and, maybe walk away. There can also be a tension between our immediate desires. We may desire, spend all our rent money on a pair of shoes, but we need to, have that long-term obligation of keeping a home over our head sort of thing. And we can just have resistance to getting outside of our comfort zone and making changes to our routine, So ultimately this week, to make the most of this energy, we have to take a balanced approach that honours both feeling this week and our emotions and our, the need for structure and, rationality as well. Listen to your inner self, list your responsibilities, also acknowledge your emotional needs while, meeting your responsibilities and taking accountability this week. Practice expressing your thoughts and warmth and sort of like, just expressing your feelings with more clarity, maybe stand in the mirror and stuff like that, write things down. Attempt one significant project that requires focus as well, to be open to the energy of discipline, what the Sun, Saturn parallel wants us to be open to, set reasonable boundaries while remaining compassionate with yourself and others, create space for healing conversations, and also reflect on your life direction. What does your future self need from your present self? Ask yourself that. The key to dealing with this week's energy is finding the balance between structure and compassion, between the analytical thinking and emotional intelligence, and we have to speak our truth and love the process of doing as well as speaking our truth with love as well, and also listening with both our minds and hearts this week. So in terms of, how this week's energy affects our career and business, so it allows us to organize workplace communications, and it kind of allows us to clarify our roles and responsibilities at work as well. It allows us to balance analytical thinking with relationship management at work, and we can have increased attention from authority figures or opportunities to demonstrate our reliability. It's a great time to deal with challenging projects that require sustained focus. It also allows us to deal with any communication problems in the workplace as well and confront them. And if before this week, there's been misunderstandings or painful conversations, this transit offers a chance to heal these situations through clear and compassionate conversation as well. And it allows us to, sort of like align with the opportunities that can help us sort of like progress with our long-term career goals as well. And what we accomplish now could set important foundations for our future advancement, so it's important to document important communications clearly and thoroughly, take on responsibilities that showcase our reliability this week, confront any workplace tensions with compassionate clarity, and look for opportunities that align with your long-term vision. In terms of friendships can require more thoughtful communication this week as well, as there can be situations where we misunderstand each other's intentions in our friendship groups this week. But this is a brilliant opportunity to practice expressing care while maintaining clarity and being authentic about who you are and what you expect from your friends, or what you're willing to give and what you're not willing to give. Boundaries can come up in our friendships as well, as the Sun-Saturn parallel can make friendships feel more serious, or they can require more commitment than usual. Old friends might need your support right now, or you might be called to maintain boundaries in certain social situations. Sensitive conversations with friends can happen this week as well. It's a good time to confront any persistent hurts or misunderstandings. Maybe one friend never pays their share of the eating bill or any other bill. This is the right sort of like time to address this, because this energy supports healing through honest communication as well. And we can find ourselves naturally gravitating towards friendships that align with our evolving, growing values, so we may let go of friendships that are holding us back. If that friend keeps on saying, no, I won't pay my share, maybe you need to let that friend go. So it's a great week to schedule some intentional time with your friends rather than just casual drop-ins. Practice active listening with friends and confront any unresolved tensions with compassionate honesty, and notice which friendships feel aligned with your true self and which ones don't. In terms of self-partnered as well, this week is a week to bring balance, especially with your self-analysis, with self-compassion. Examine patterns, look into yourself, do that inner and shadow work, but also make sure that you do this introspection, self-reflection from a loving place, developing your relationship with yourself in an empathetic way, making commitments to your own well-being and looking after your psychological, emotional, spiritual, financial and physical health, and setting boundaries that protect your energy and resources is really important right now. Also to follow through on any promises that you've made to yourself as well, because this week a window has been open to help you to focus on healing any negative self-talk or communication patterns that undermine your confidence. Notice when your inner critic becomes activated, write these things down, and practice responding with compassion. Also this week you may have a spotlight being put on, who you are becoming and where you've been, giving clarity about, what you need to keep on doing to move forward as well. So ultimately this week, create a structured self-care routine that honors both your body and your mind. Journal about patterns you want to change and why they matter. Practice speaking to yourself with compassion. Visualize your future self and identify one step toward becoming them, and just treat yourself like a friend, or like a little baby in some ways. This week it's really important to really nurture yourself and be understanding with what you see as your failures or personality flaws. Hookups, they can be more complex this week than normal. There can be a disconnection between what's said and what's felt. In hookup relationships, there's a need for clearer communication about your expectations and boundaries this week. We can find ourselves considering the long-term implications of short-term relationships, or we may feel a need for more substance in our hookups, so some of you may choose to end them and look for more committed relationships as well. We can be hurt by words, so we have to be mindful of what words that we say, as our words this week can inadvertently hurt others, and the best that we can do in some situations, because we don't know everyone's triggers, right, is to apologise and to respect other people's boundaries and enforce our boundaries as well. We can really be vulnerable this week in intimate settings, from committed or hookup relationships as well, but it gives us an opportunity to have healing conversations as well as highlighting sensitive areas so we can manage them better, right? And we can just sort of think about how hookup relationships fit into our longer term growth and needs, and we can think about what patterns we're reinforcing in our romantic life and ask ourselves if they're serving our growth or keeping us stuck or holding us back, So it's important to communicate expectations clearly, consider whether casual relationships align with your values, be mindful of sensitive topics in new relationships, and notice if you're using hookups to avoid deeper relationships as well. In terms of committed relationships, so ultimately this week brings opportunities for growth in committed partnerships, and it can highlight the differences in communication styles between partners because of the Mercury-Venus contra-parallel. One of you might, favour logical discussion while the other prioritise emotional connection, and we need to appreciate each other's different communication styles and respect each other, right? And our responsibilities can also come into focus because of the Sun Saturn energy, right? So it's important to make important decisions together, confronting, dealing with any structural issues in the partnership, or recommitting to shared goals. This energy supports doing the necessary work to strengthen your foundation. Mercury's Chiron contra-parallel opens the space for healing conversations in our relationships this week, as old wounds related to communication or feeling misunderstood come up, and this offers a chance to confront not only these wounds but other wounds, and having some sort of new awareness on understanding and respect and compassion, and how to deal with these issues, how to respect each other's differences as well. And you can just consider how your relationship supports your growth or holds you back from your current growth path or your future growth path, and you can ask yourself, are you and your partner growing in compatible directions? Sometimes we outgrow relationships and it can be painful. It's not easy to let go, but sometimes we cause more pain by holding on, So this transit helps put a spotlight on the path forward together as well. So you can schedule a state of relationship conversation to confront important matters, divide responsibilities in a way that honour each other's strengths, practice active listening when difficult topics come up, and create shared visions for your future together, So ultimately this week it's important to create a communication inventory. Know areas where you tend to be overly analytical versus overly emotional, and practice balancing these approaches. Establish one significant boundary, identify where you need more structure, and implement a clear boundary that honours your needs. Schedule a healing conversation if need be. It can be with someone else or yourself. Reach out to someone who you've had miscommunication and where this has caused distance, and approach the conversation with honesty and compassion and active listening, Organise your space, because the Virgo energy this week supports creating systems and routines that increase efficiency and reduce stress. Review long-term goals, set aside time to consider whether your current activities align with your desired future, making changes as needed. Practice precise compassion when giving feedback. Mix detailed observations with genuine care for the other person's feeling. Audit your responsibilities, evaluate which commitments truly deserve your energy and consider releasing those that don't serve your growth. Create a self-healing ritual. Develop a simple practice that confronts a recurring wound, particularly one related to self-expression or self-worth. Document important communications. Keep records of significant conversations, especially in professional contexts. Build routines that support your goals while allowing room for flexibility and spontaneity. So in terms of the combined psychological, karmic and spiritual meanings, for Mercury's contra-parallel to Venus, it wants us to find new ways of expressing our feelings that honour both our intellect and desires. It brings that tension, as I said, between our logical mind and emotional healing, and we can find ourselves analysing relationships more deeply or struggling to articulate, to put a finger on, to express complex emotions. Karmically, the soul lessons here involves learning to communicate with both clarity and compassion, developing the ability to speak truth without causing harm. Past life patterns around communication in relationships can come up for healing. It represents the divine challenge of expressing love through conscious communication, helping us to develop wisdom about when to speak and when to listen, and when to use our heart, which is always really, but we have to protect it from abuse and stuff, But yeah, esoterically, it forces growth through creative tension, teaching us to bridge the gap between mind and heart through evolved communication. The sun's parallel to Saturn psychologically strengthens our psychological backbone, creating a more mature, responsible approach to life challenges. We may feel more serious or contemplative, self-reflective, and we can also have an increased awareness of our duties and commitments. Karmically, it brings rewards from past discipline and hard work, while also presenting opportunities to take on greater responsibility. Lessons around authority structure and long-term commitment are highlighted, right? And spiritually, the Divine Father principle is activated, teaching us about spiritual discipline, patience, and the sacred nature of commitment. This energy helps us understand that true freedom comes through mastery. Esoterically, it creates a direct channel between our personal will, which is represented by the sun, and cosmic law, which is represented by Saturn, allowing us to become a conscious co-creator with universal principles. Mercury's contra-parallel to Chiron brings, sort of like our attention to which areas of our communication needs healing, so we can transform pain through conscious expression and awareness. We can become more aware of how our words can heal or harm. Karmically, past life wounds around communication, teaching or being heard are being put under the spotlight for healing. The soul lesson involves learning to use your voice as a healing tool rather than a weapon. Spiritually, this transit activates the wounded healing archetype, showing you how your own healing journey can become a source of wisdom and guidance for others. Esoterically, it sort of like creates a healing crisis in our communication this week that can lead to greater compassion and understanding, transforming your ability to bridge different worlds through words, and healing actions. So the sun's parallel to the moon's north node is a powerful alignment between our conscious identity and our soul's evolutionary growth direction, bringing clarity about our life purpose and increasing confidence in our unique path. Karmically, this is a major destiny point where past life talents and future growth opportunities kind of converge. The soul recognizes its mission and feels called to step up to greater responsibilities. Spiritually, divine guidance is particularly strong during this transit, with clear signs and synchronicities pointing towards your highest path. This represents spiritual sort of like graduation, leveling up to a new level of service. Esoterically, it creates a direct transmission of higher purpose through the solar consciousness, activating dormant potentials and aligning you with your cosmic mission. So it can really just awaken things in us this week, bringing that latent, hidden talents and skills and potentials to our mind so we can sort of like move forward. So ultimately, this week is all about conscious communication and purposeful living, creating a powerful alchemical process, change process, where serious commitment, Sun Saturn right meets healing wisdom, Mercury Chiron, whilst love and logic find new harmony, Mercury Venus right, and they're all being guided by divine destiny represented by the Sun North Node aspect right. So we're being called to step up as a healer through our words, someone who can speak truth with compassion, commit to long-term growth and use communication as a bridge between our wounded places and wholeness. This isn't just about talking, it's about action and becoming a conscious channel for healing. So ultimately, this week builds tension between the heart and mind, wanting us to really sort of be serious and take more responsibility and healing through the pain as well, and just being prepared to take on a more mature, purposeful role in our relationships and life path. And the insights we can receive this week can literally change the direction of our life for the better, even though it may be painful at first. We should trust the process, speak our truth with love, and prepare to step into a more powerful version of ourselves. So ultimately, the work with the tension between structure and flow, between analysis and feeling, this week isn't meant to be resolved by choosing one over the other. These seemingly opposites are actually complementary energies, inviting us into wholeness, and the disciplined focus of Saturn provides the container, the space in which Venus' beauty and Mercury's insights can grow this week, and the wounds that Chiron brings to our attention can become doorways to greater authenticity and compassion. Trust that this week's challenges are precisely calibrated to support your growth towards your destiny, not by avoiding difficulty but by moving through it with awareness and grace. So as I keep on saying, sometimes we just have to learn to work with the chaos, because let's face it, there's a lot of chaos in this world, right? So in terms of soul searching questions to help us reflect, we can ask, where in your life have you been prioritizing thinking over feeling, and what would true integration of these energies look like? You can ask yourself which responsibilities or routines in your life feel most aligned with your authentic self and which feel imposed or inauthentic. You can ask, what healing conversations are you avoiding, and what first step could you take toward having this conversation this week? Okay, so now I'm going to give guidance for each of the 12 sun, moon and rising signs. So Aries, this week is asking you to slow down and attend to the details, particularly in work relationships. With Chiron in your sign being activated, old wounds around self-expression can surface, so use this as an opportunity to develop a more nuanced or low-key communication style, and your forward progress works best when tempered with thoughtful planning right now. Taurus, with Venus in contra-parallel with Mercury, you're balancing practical considerations with relationship needs. This week supports organising your creative projects and bringing more structure to pleasure plans. Don't rush important financial decisions, especially around the 1st of October when the Sun Saturn parallel demands careful consideration on your decisions, right? Gemini, your ruling planet Mercury is quite active this week, challenging you to communicate with both focusedness and care and compassion. Home and family matters require clear boundaries yet flexible thinking. By the 4th of October, you will have insights about how childhood communication patterns affect your present relationships, and this awareness offers healing potential. Cancer, Venus in Leo highlights your resources sector, while Mercury in Virgo activates communication, creating a week where discussing values and priorities become important. The Sun Saturn parallel on October the 1st might feel restricted, but offers valuable structure for expressing your emotional needs, create space for both practical planning and emotional processing. Leo, with Venus in your sign contra-parallel to Mercury, you're learning to balance self-expression with attentive listening. The Sun, your ruler, paralleling Saturn midweek, brings focus to financial responsibilities and resource management. By the week's end, clarity about your values help align your spending and earnings with your authentic path. Virgo, with Mercury in your sign, your analytical abilities are increased, but the contra-parallel to Venus symbolises balancing compassion with analysis. The Sun in your sign, parallel in Saturn, brings a serious, focused energy to your self-development this week. Use this energy to create routines that support your health and personal growth. Libra, this activates your sectors of social connection and self-reflection this week. Mercury's Venus's contra-parallel symbolises reconciling, bringing together differences, especially those between your public and private self. The Sun-Saturn parallel helps you to establish, set up boundaries around solitude and reflection time, and by the weekend you'll gain clarity about what social relationships truly support your growth and which hold you back. Scorpio, this week there can be tension between your career goals and friendship obligations, and Mercury's Venus's contra-parallel asks you to communicate your professional goals while maintaining relationship harmony. The Sun-Saturn parallel supports structured networking and community building. Trust the insights that come around your long-term goals. Sagittarius, the sectors of career and philosophy are activated this week, symbolising a need to ground your big ideas in practical routines. The Mercury-Venus contra-parallel helps you communicate your vision with both care and enthusiasm. The Sun-Saturn parallel brings opportunities to demonstrate your reliability to authority figures. Capricorn, with your ruler Saturn being paralleled by the Sun, this is a significant week for educational plans and expanding your limits. The Mercury-Venus contra-parallel supports balancing detailed study with appreciation for beauty and connection, and by the end of the week you can have more clarity about your philosophical direction, helping you make decisions about advanced learning or travel. Aquarius, this week your houses of shared resources and personal transformation are activated, so this symbolises that careful communication about financial entanglements, commitments or intimate matters are really at the forefront of your week. You need to pay attention to those, and you can gain insights about your growth path if you really pay attention to your personal transformation and shared resources this week. Pisces, relationship responsibilities are in focus this week for you, and it wants you to balance intellectual understanding with emotional connections in your relationships as well, and healing conversations are really possible for you this week, especially about how you communicate your needs in close relationships. So in terms of this week's mantras, Aries, I communicate with both courage and care, allowing my authentic voice to come out without wounding others. My healing journey strengthens rather than diminishes my pioneering spirit. Taurus, I create practical routines that support beauty and pleasure in my life. My resources grow when I combine careful planning with appreciation for what I already have. Gemini, I balance curiosity with focus, allowing my mind to explore while maintaining commitment to what matters. My communication heals when I mix care with compassion. Cancer, I express my emotions with both clarity and sensitivity, honouring my feelings while communicating them effectively. My nurturing nature thrives within healthy, clear boundaries. Leo, I shine most brightly when I balance self-expression with being open to others. My creative power strengthens when I accept the discipline required of mastery. Virgo, I analyse with both care and compassion, seeing details while maintaining perspective on the whole. My healing journey involves accepting imperfection while continuing to improve. Libra, I am looking for harmony that includes rather than avoids necessary tension and growth. My relationships thrive when I communicate my needs as I clearly listen to my needs and others' needs. Scorpio, I transform through both letting go and building new structures. My power deepens when I communicate intense truths with consideration for others' people's emotions and how they will take it, Sagittarius, I increase through focus rather than simple wondering, finding freedom within committed exploration. My optimism becomes wisdom when grounded in practical reality. Capricorn, I achieve my goals through both disciplined effort and teamwork connection. My authority strengthens when I balance fairness with flexibility. Aquarius, I innovate most effectively within structures that support sustainable long-term change. My vision for the future manifests when I communicate it with both clarity and heart. Pisces, I honour both my spiritual sensitivity and my need for practical boundaries. My compassion becomes more effective when expressed with discretion and clarity. So in terms of what content to create this week, focus on producing work that balances detailed information with emotional resonance. This week supports content that educates while maintaining aesthetic appeal and relationship connection. Consider creating tutorials or how-to content that not only provides step-by-step instructions but also explains why these processes matter emotionally or relationally. This mix of Mercury information and Venus value can sort of like resonate more strongly with audiences right now, so information that brings value and foundational content that establishes your authority in the field. This is an excellent time for launching series, course or collections that demonstrate your expertise and commitment to your subject matter, and content that helps your audience create structure or develop discipline in their lives will be particularly well received. And vulnerability can become your strength this week, so content that says how you've overcome challenges, particularly around communication or self-expression, as this will help you connect deeply with your audience. Consider confronting, dealing with topics related to healing through creativity, communication or learning. Content that helps people align with their future vision or evolutionary path. Content that helps people grow. Create frameworks, visualization exercises or self-reflection pieces that guide your audience towards greater clarity about their direction. Remember that the most impactful content will combine precise, well researched information with genuine emotional connection and practical application, how people can actually apply what you're telling them to their day-to-day life, and your ability to bridge the analytical with the emotional this week will set your work apart and help you work with this week's astrological energies. So now I'm just going to talk about the day-to-day energies that add flavour to our week. On the 28th of September, got Mars making a biquintal to Saturn at 6:06 a.m, Venus making a sextiquadrat to Chiron at 8:03 a.m, the Moon entering void of course at 8:44 a.m, and then the Moon entering Sagittarius at 23:25 p.m, right? So Mars is biquintal to Saturn and Venus is sextiquadrat to Chiron. That's just all 3 days. And Chiron's in Aries, Venus is in Leo, and Saturn's in Pisces, and Mars is in Libra. So Mars is biquintal to Saturn adds to the discipline we can have this week and our ability to solve problems, but it can also add to the frustration, especially if we try to force progress and ignore our limits. So it's important to balance reaching our goals with patience, work smart, not just hard. Venus is sextiquadrat to Chiron, gives us a chance to heal old wounds in love and self-worth, especially through gentle honesty. The best use of this is to, have self-compassion and open-hearted communication with yourself and others, and just be gentle with yourself when insecurities come up, and past hurts in relationships come up. The Moon void of course is good for self-reflection. The Moon in Sagittarius adds to the curiosity we can have this week and lifts our mood up, right? Helps us with being open to change, but it can add to us being being restless and over-promising. So we just have to make sure that we're optimistic and look for new perspectives, but also stay grounded as well. So ultimately, we just need to make sure we practice self-care and gentle reflection, work on long-term projects with patience, watch out for frustration with our slow progress, and just be open to subtle but steady progress, and finding creative solutions to stubborn problems as well. And we can ask ourselves, where do we hold on to old hurts out of habit, and how might letting go of these open up space for new growth, So you could write a letter. You don't have to send it, but write down, or voice note, whatever, to someone or something you're ready to forgive. Take a mindful walk and notice what inspires curiosity or hope. Practice a grounding exercise before making big decisions as well. And in the workplace, be open to taking a more creative approach, And on the 29th of September, Mercury makes a quincunx to the moon's north node, and Mercury's in Virgo and the moon's north node is in Aquarius, and this energy lasts us for a few days. So it adds to our motivation to be open to fresh ideas about our life direction, pushing us to reconsider old assumptions and belief systems and opening our mind to new possibilities. But it can also add to the restlessness that comes up this week and self-doubt and second guessing. It's important to pause and reflect to make the best use of this energy, change our plans when need be, and be open to unexpected insights that can align our path as well. It's important to, have gentle self-awareness, be open to change, reflect on long-term direction, and be open to advice from wise mentors. Work may require a rethink right now. Don't be afraid to ask questions or make changes. In terms of questions to ask, you can ask why and where do you cling to old beliefs out of habit and your comfort zone, and how might questioning them and being open to new beliefs put you on a more authentic path. So you can journal about a belief or plan you're ready to reconsider. Have a heart-to-heart with someone whose wisdom you trust today. Practice a short meditation to clear your mind without forcing yourself to make decisions. Just take time, because you can have difficulty communicating your desires today, and you can feel disconnected from your purpose because of indecision, so it's important to just be gentle with yourself and practice mindful communication and change plans based on any new insights you have as you reflect on your long-term life direction. On the 30th of September, the moon's north node goes direct at 44 minutes past midnight. The moon enters first quarter moon phase at 54 minutes past midnight, and Mercury's contra-parallel to Venus is exact at 6:14 a.m. right? So today is a day of just reflecting. The first quarter moon phase is all about maybe starting things that you've put off, starting from the new moon. The moon's north node direct wants us to go more within ourselves, and as we move into the 1st of October, the sun's in Virgo, the moon's in Sagittarius, Mercury is in Virgo, Venus is in Leo, Mars is in Libra, Jupiter is in Gemini, Saturn's retrograde in Pisces, Uranus is retrograde in Taurus, Neptune's retrograde in Pisces as well, and Pluto's retrograde in Capricorn and out of bounds, and Chiron is retrograde in Aries, and the moon's north node is in Aquarius. So the sun in Virgo and Mercury allows us to focus on problem solving. The moon in Sagittarius at the start of the month allows us to be more optimistic and open to intellectual and philosophical exploration. Venus in Leo brings dramatic expression and creative experiences to the month, and Mars in Libra opens the month with us being able to gain more balance within our relationships and ourselves as well, and it helps us with our personal growth and social relationships as well. Jupiter in Gemini supports increases our mental limits and belief system, and supporting us to be more curious, especially in our learning. Saturn in retrograde helps us to review our spiritual foundations and long-term long-term goals. Uranus retrograde in Taurus helps us to shake up our values and change them as well, helping us to find innovative approaches to stability. Neptune in Pisces allows us to connect to the collective unconscious, but it can make us escape into intoxicating relationships and thinking and ignore red flags and manipulate others or be manipulated, as the lines between reality and imagination are more blurred. So we just need to ground ourselves as much as possible. Pluto retrograde in Capricorn intensifies the themes of power and transformation this month, symbolizing unexpected developments in global structures and systems, right, and personal empowerment. Chiron retrograde in Aries helps us to, focus more on confronting our personal wounds and, sort of like working towards the greater good while we heal ourselves by being assertive. So ultimately this month we're being called to balance practical concerns with spiritual insights and to revisit and change our goals and plans and lifestyle habits to make sure they're more in line with our long-term goals. And this week's energy is helping us do that, right, as we focus on our self-reflection, love, forgiveness and awareness, and taking action. On the 1st of October, the sun's parallel to Saturn is exact at 24 minutes past midnight. The moon void of course starts at 6:41 a.m. The moon enters Capricorn at 9:58 a.m. and Mercury makes a square to Jupiter at 9:59 p.m. So Mercury square to Jupiter allows us to be more creative and courageous in our thinking, adds to the curiosity of this week and the increase in confidence, but again can lead to us over promising and exaggerating and missing details in the rush to see the bigger picture and to reach our goals. So it's important to dream big but double check your facts and avoid biting off more than you can chew. The moon's void of course is great for self-reflection and tying up loose ends. The moon in Capricorn brings that nice grounding practical energy to the week. We can be sort of like more ambitious, so it's great for setting goals, meeting targets, but we just need to watch out for burnout and being emotionally distant and overly serious, because we've got the sun Saturn energy doing that, and this energy is adding to that as well. So it's important to be open to being logical but emotional intelligence today as well, as we focus on being more productive and being more motivated to set and go after our big goals. It brings opportunities for learning and growth, but we just need to make sure we don't overcommit or miss important details. Set clear realistic goals for the month ahead and research or study something that excites you. Finish outstanding tasks before starting new ones, and practice discernment, good judgment in communication and commitments. So you can ask yourself, where do you feel that you let the fear of failure or overconfidence block your progress, and how can you find a middle path between caution and bravery? Maybe write down your top 3 priorities for the coming month and commit to taking 1 action per day. Double check any big plans or promises before sharing them, and practice grounding exercises to balance ambition with calm, steady, grounded focus. On the 2nd of October, Mars makes a biquintile to Neptune, the moon enters void of course, Venus makes a sesquiquadrant to Pluto, Mercury makes a biquintile to the moon's north node, and Mercury enters Libra. So Mars' biquintile to Neptune adds to us being inspired to take creative action and spiritual courage, and gives us the ability to turn dreams into reality, but again can make us escape into our addictive substances and intoxicating relationships, and it adds to the confusion and escapism of the week, especially if we feel ungrounded. So it's important to ground ourselves. Venus' sesquiquadrant to Pluto deepens our passion, reveals our hidden desires, making relationships more intense and transformative, but it can also bring up jealousy, power struggles or excessive feelings. It's best used to face emotional truths with honesty, use intensity for healing and not control. control and just be more compassionate in our deeds and the things that we do right now. Mercury is biquintile to the moon's north node, can bring fainted conversation, intuitive insights and the ability to connect ideas with our life direction, but also adds to the overthinking of this week and us missing subtle cues and behaviour words that people are giving us, and this can lead to missed opportunities or add to the problems in relationship this week. So it's important to be open to our intuition and open to synchronistic messages. Mercury enters Libra, so this brings balance, diplomacy and flair for us to be fair-minded in our communication, but it can also make decision making slower or lead to people pleasing. It's best used for active listening and looking for win-win solutions in conversations by compromising. So ultimately today is a mix of mystical creativity, emotional depth, and allows us to be more diplomatic and open-minded in our mindset, right? It allows us to sort of have more harmony in our relationships, but it can add to the emotional intensity and power struggles of this week and the confusion and escapism, indecision and people pleasing, and us sort of like overlooking the practicalities of life and our relationships and meeting our goals. So it's best to be honest in what you can achieve and honest in your communication and work on letting go of old emotional baggage. In terms of the question to ask yourself today, you can ask, where do you avoid honest communication for fear of conflict, and how might speaking your truth bring deeper harmony to your relationship, and you could practice a loving kindness meditation, focus on someone you need to forgive, write down one area of your life where you want more balance and take a small step towards that area, and have a heart-to-heart conversation with someone important, aiming for true understanding, and that's how you can integrate today's energy. On the 3rd of October, Mercury makes a biquintile to Uranus, the moon enters Aquarius, Mercury makes an opposition to Chiron, and the moon enters its gibbous moon phase. So Mercury's biquintile to Uranus brings flashes of genius, inventive thinking and original solutions to our day, but it can add to the restlessness and jumping to conclusions that can happen this week. So it's important to be open to new ideas and write down any insights, as this can really bring up creative solutions to problems. Let curiosity lead. Mercury's opposition to Chiron helps us to heal old wounds through honest conversation and self-reflection. So a lot of energy helping us to heal things, especially communication problems in our relationship, right? But this energy can also trigger painful memories and add to painful memories being triggered, right? Because we got a lot of aspects doing that this week. So again, it's practice compassionate communication, listen as much as you speak. The moon in Aquarius allows us to be more detached, so this supports open-mindedness and social connection. It can also make things more unpredictable, so always have a plan A and B today, or maybe a C, but the unpredictability can help us connect with like-minded souls and be open to new perspectives. The gibbous moon phase increases our intuition and motivation to change our plans, but it can make us impatient and bring self-doubt if our progress feels slow. So it's important to review your goals and make thoughtful changes as you go along. In terms of questions to ask yourself today, as I said, this week is really asking you, why do you hold back from being your best self? What are you afraid of, And it's very important to practice active listening and empathy as we go down into the week, right? On the 4th of October, Mercury's contra-parallel to Chiron is exact at 1:38. Venus's opposition to the moon's north node is exact at 10:21 a.m. and the sun's parallel to the moon's north node is exact at 6:31 p.m. today. So Venus's opposition to the moon's north node can bring fated meetings and relationship crossroads. It gives us opportunities to realign with love with our soul's path, but it can add to the tension between personal desires and collective needs, and it can kind of highlight relationship imbalances, The best use of this energy is to notice who enters or exits your life today, or what exits or enters your life today. Reflect on what your heart truly values, It puts our attention on the fact that words can heal, and that's the message of this week. So we have to choose our words this week and today with care as well, aligning our heart, mind and destiny. Thinking, do your relationship help you grow or do you hold you back? It's a time and a call to speak your truth, even if it hurts right now. It's all about endurance, transformation and the courage to keep on going even when the path is uncertain, and also it reminds us that sometimes the most important messages are unspoken, so pay attention to body language today. It's all about trusting the journey even if it feels lopsided or out of your comfort zone, and it calls us, and this week really calls us to let go of or face the truth about what we need to let go of, and what no longer fits our growth, and to be brave enough to be real to ourselves and to have the courage this week to make the necessary changes, especially when we feel exposed or uncertain. We can have a lot of anxiety this week about our purpose and destiny, and emotional vulnerability and awkwardness in communication can really, flame up, bring up our self-doubt. But this week is all about being honest, having those heart-to-heart conversations, reflecting on your relationship and values, trusting your instincts about your next step that you need to take to live the life you really want to live right, and practice self-compassion and patience this week. It's really a week for honest feedback in work, career, relationships, which can really take a turning point this week. So we have to be open to the growth even if it's uncomfortable. You can ask yourself, where do you cling to old relationship patterns out of fear, and how might letting go today open the door for more authentic connections, because we all say we want to be happy, but sometimes we add to our own unhappiness by keeping things in our life that we need to let go of. So to finish off this week, you can write down one relationship or habit you're ready to let go of. Practice mindful listening in every conversation today. Meditate on your heart's true direction and just be open to newness. So yeah, that's the end of the weekly scopes from the 28th of September to the 4th of October. Take care and see you next time.